So I'm being sued again. Remember last time Richard Tice, Nigel Farage's friend, tried to sue me for saying that Leave.eu tweeting a picture of a Jewish person puppeteering politicians, a well-known anti-Semitic trope, meant that he set up an anti-Jewish organization? I simply didn't have the money to hire lawyers to try and fight him in court, so I made a video, much like this one, backing up what I said and calling him out for trying to use his expensive lawyers to intimidate and silence me. And Richard Tice backed down, either because he realized he couldn't win the case or because he knew how bad it made him look. Similarly, right now I've got about £2,500 to my name, so hiring lawyers to match those of the person trying to sue me now would wipe me out financially anyway. So
fine, I'll do it myself.
Unfortunately, the person threatening to sue me right now is Eddie Dempsey, so I want to get a couple of things straight. I offered to sit down with him and explain why I, a person from an ethnic minority, found his comments specifically about ethnic minorities to be problematic in a way that supported the narrative of racists, and even put out a video together explaining what he meant, why the language he used was problematic, and give him a chance to tell the world that it was just a mistake. But Eddie Dempsey's lawyers have refused and have continued to threaten me with legal action that I cannot afford. However, he is the last person that I want a public fight with right now because he's doing amazing work for the Enough is Enough campaign. So I have a really weird request. Because I don't intend to hire lawyers, can I please ask that if you would have been willing to donate to any potential crowdfunder that I set up for my legal defense, can you instead donate the money to either his Enough is Enough campaign, the RMT, or any workers union that you feel needs help right now given the current crisis? So here's what I tweeted. Eddie Dempsey, speaking at Labour Leave, saying Tommy Robinson is right to hate Labour's focus on racial equality. These people held Labour back from firmly opposing Brexit until it was too late. And I tweeted it with this video.
And I tell you, the problem we've got in the left is, as the institutions of the working class and their jobs have been removed from around this country, so have their institutions been taken over by the Liberals.
Now, for starters, the use of the word liberal has always been a problem because what I hope he means is neoliberal, which is the word he uses at the end, which basically means free market capitalism. And obviously, trade unionists like him should rightfully be opposed to that. But the top definition of the word liberal means socially progressive. And 99% of the people watching this video, that's what they understand by that word. Hell, even Hinge sees it that way. Your options are liberal, left-wing, moderate, centre, conservative, right-wing. Hell, even Owen Jones, someone very much aligned with Ed Dempsey right now, at the time said that this term described anybody who was left-wing and anti-Brexit. But you're thinking, so what, he used the wrong word? But here's what he said about it.
Whatever you think about people that turn out for Tommy Robinson demos or any other march like that, the one thing that unites them people, beyond whatever other bigotry that's going on, is their hatred of the liberal left. And they are right to hate them. They are correct.
So it's undeniable that he said that the people who show up to Tommy Robinson rallies and rallies like that, which obviously includes Tommy Robinson, are right to hate liberals. So can you see why using a word that most people understand as meaning socially progressive to describe the people that you say Tommy Robinson is right to hate can be a problem? But let's just say these are red flags. What does he then say?
Because they are the people who have seen their industries taken away, who have captured their Labour Party, and are now talking to them like they're the scum of the earth.
Okay, so Tommy Robinson supporters are right to hate liberals because they're talking to them like scum. That's an interesting side to pick, given that nobody is calling Tommy Robinson supporters scum because they lost their industries or their jobs. They're calling them scum because they support this guy.
You think this is a British community, or you might have British Muslims. They are enemy combatants in these houses who want to kill you, maim you, and destroy you.
No, Mo. It's because the people from your home country, Somalia, are backward barbarians.
You're part of an invasion into our country, Sadiq.
But it's the next bit you really need to listen to.
There's too many in the Labour Party right now. They've made a calculation that there's a certain section of the top end of the working class in alliance with people they calculate from ethnic minorities and the Liberals. That's enough to get them into power. And they believe that that alliance is all they need, that they can disregard all of the working class people in this country that have been driven away from the Labour movement by the neoliberals.
So he's making the argument that Labour is neglecting the poorer end of working class people because it only needs the votes of liberals, upper working class, and ethnic minorities. A. Especially with the use of the word alliance, what he says suggests that the political interests of ethnic minorities on one hand, and by process of elimination, white working class on the other, are in opposition to each other, which is straight out of the UKIP handbook. And also neglects the fact that people from ethnic minorities are statistically more likely to be working class. B. It treats being an anti-racist party as an optional extra because you specifically target the votes of ethnic minorities by being anti-racist, by promoting racial equality. So the question is, why ethnic minorities? Because he could have said the same thing about being anti-homophobia. Oh, Labour thinks it just needs the votes of gay people, so it doesn't need working class people. Or gender equality. Oh, Labour thinks it just needs the women vote, so to hell with poor people. Again, acting like intersectionality isn't a thing. But he chose to complain about Labour focusing on the group that Tommy Robinson's lot hate the most, ethnic minorities, to the detriment of poorer working class white people. Now again, I want this to be a teachable moment, so I'm going to show you some examples of me making similar points to Ed Dempsey long before I saw his video, and see if you can spot the difference.
That failure to really focus on regional inequality just to the same extent as we focus on the other protected characteristics in terms of inequality, that damages trust in those areas that are desperately being left behind.
You see how I pointed out that the left addresses a whole range of inequalities which exist in all regions of the UK, but has failed to be as strong on regional inequality specifically. So it's more about regional poverty being left out rather than pitting one group of people, say ethnic minorities, against another. And most importantly, I didn't have to agree with extreme racists in order to do that. In fact, when I was filming at a pro-Brexit rally, I made a clear distinction between the working class people who wanted Brexit and the Tommy Robinson supporters who were also there. And it's actually insulting to many of them to compare them with the Tommy Robinson lot because what they wanted was a political system that actually cared about them, that cared about areas outside of London, places that have been neglected by the political class for a very long time. Nothing to do with racism, nothing to do with Tommy Robinson or UKIP or any of that crap. I put myself in physical danger on multiple occasions to highlight the dangers of aligning the working class struggle with a Brexit that was introduced, promoted, and driven through by the far right. And that's a link that I've been trying to break ever since I saw Labour's pro-Brexit MP Kate Hoey on a boat with Nigel Farage, because Brexit has objectively hurt working class people. The government's own experts say that Brexit has done more damage to our economy than COVID. Half of small businesses have had to stop selling to the EU. Academics say that it's added 6% to the cost of food. Brexit has hurt the very people that Eddie Dempsey wants to help, but he was supporting it. The speech we're talking about, he gave it at a pro-Brexit rally. People like him are the reason that Labour kept supporting Brexit for 3 years until late 2019, at which point it was too late for Labour to lead the charge against it. And it just so happens that 2 weeks before the Dempsey video resurfaced, I put out a video about how Katie Hopkins was rebranding herself on TikTok as some sort of working class savior during the poverty crisis, because I am genuinely scared that if we let the people who supported Brexit by either being racist or defending the views of racists lead working class movements again, we will only have ourselves to blame when the next Brexit happens. Now, I am not saying that Eddie Dempsey is racist. The man has campaigned hard against racism. He has receipts on that. You even heard him talk about Tommy Robinson's bigotry in that speech. But people make mistakes. I've even known black people who are also anti-racist who, because of either internalized racism or unknowingly swallowing racist narratives from the media, have said stuff about black people that is more racist than what Dempsey said. So the fact that Dempsey has a history of standing up against racism doesn't make what he said in that speech any less problematic. Whatever his beliefs, the man messed up. And so again we come back to, I'm getting sued. So I guess we probably should address that. There are 3 defenses against libel in the Defamation Act of 2013. Truth, honest opinion, and public interest. As for the truth defense, what I said he said wasn't in quotations, and the video doesn't include those exact words, so it wouldn't make sense to try that defense. As for the defense of honest opinion, first criteria, it has to be an opinion, and as a matter of basic grammar, what I said can only be an opinion. Because I didn't say Eddie Dempsey said Tommy Robinson is right. I tweeted Eddie Dempsey saying Tommy Robinson was right, i.e. the video attached is Eddie Dempsey saying that. So any reasonable person seeing that tweet would read it as a summary of the attached video. And with political speeches, of course a summary is going to be a subjective analysis, also known as an opinion. And the second criteria for the defense of honest opinion is you have to show the basis for your opinion. And I can't stress this enough. I attached the video of him saying the things that created my opinion. As for the defense of public interest, I have to believe that it's in the public's interest for me to say those things. And I don't think it's in the public's interest for working class movements to be aligning themselves with far-right agendas, as evidenced by the Katie Hopkins video that I put out 2 weeks prior. Look, in a straight fight, he loses this case every day of the week. But he has a big law firm, and I just have this. Again, I didn't want to have to do this, but his lawyers are threatening me with financial elimination. But if he, a white man who literally agreed with Tommy Robinson supporters on an issue concerning ethnic minorities, wants to sue a black man for saying so, and thinks that's a good look, fine. The most generous interpretation of these events is that he genuinely doesn't realize he's done anything wrong, because we all have blind spots, and so he just sees me as some centrist Ramoner who's trying to throw dirt on a socialist movement. And so he's using his superior legal resources to try and neutralize me. I can only hope that he sees this and changes his mind, because we have a lot of work to do, but it requires us to work together.